Well, welcome everybody. This is the debut of Nucleus SoundLab's first rack extension. For those of you who missed my little intro there a minute ago, my name is Jonathan Van Kloot, and I am user Van Kloot in the Reason forums. And I actually convinced Jeremy to do this live event. I do a lot of these webinars in my other business, and I just thought, you know, this would be so cool to do a live unveiling of a device. I was not a beta tester for this device. I don't know exactly what it is. I know exactly what you guys know. I've seen it in the forum, and it looks really cool, and I'm, of course, excited to see what Jeremy and crew have come up with, because obviously they do great refills and sound design. So I'm real excited to see and hear this. A couple of housekeeping things. Obviously, this is an open forum. We want questions and so forth, so throw them into the question box by all means. And this is your chance to get answers direct from the man himself. Jeremy will be happy to answer them. Also, audio on this. These platforms, these broadcast platforms, they're really not meant for sound. So, frankly, the sound quality sucks. It's roughly AM radio quality, so this is by no means going to be giving you any representation of what the actual audio quality of the device is, but there will be some SoundCloud links, and obviously, we'll all be able to go in and do our trial and all that good stuff. So that's kind of about it on the housekeeping front. Just throw the questions in. We definitely want to get the chance to answer all the questions we can. So Jeremy, of course, doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. Nucleus SoundLab is one of the top commercial refill production groups, in my opinion anyway. Do some of the best commercial refills out there, and Jeremy is also a whiz when it comes to training. I've done a private coaching session with him before. Got some really awesome tips on Reason. The dude just knows Reason like nobody else. So let's go ahead and get this started. Jeremy, are you there?
I am. Could I get some feedback on whether it sounds okay? Can people hear me?
Just throw a yes. Yep, there we go. We got
yes?
Some yeses. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, well, first, I'd like to thank Jonathan for helping me with this because, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to come up with this so quickly. So big thank you to him, and thank you all so much for being here and taking the time. I'm just looking through the attendees here, and there's a lot of familiar names, and yeah, I really appreciate it. This is something a little bit different, and I just wanted to try it. So let's dive in and see how it goes. So you're seeing my screen right now, and what you're seeing is our first rack extension, and it is called Beat Crush. And what I'm going to do now is show you Beat Crush inside Reason, as well as discuss exactly what kind of device it is, how the interface works, and after that's done, I'm going to take any questions you have. So let's minimize this, and you should see Reason coming up, hopefully. Here it is. Beat Crush is a multi-effects unit, but really at the heart of it, and what makes it very special is the customizable bit crusher at its core. By default, any audio that you run through Beat Crush is crushed down to 12-bit. And that adds a very subtle crunch that sounds great on drums. It's reminiscent of classic samplers like the EMU SP1200, the Yamaha RX5, and even one of my favorites, the newer Electron machine drum. But there's something a bit different, and it's this array of buttons along the bottom of the device. We can actually use it to turn on and off all 12 of those individual bits. So if I turn off these 4 bits, our audio is suddenly 8-bit, much more crunchy and digital. And going further, we could go down to 2-bit audio or 1-bit, and that'll probably sound something like a Commodore 64 computer from the 80s. That's a really simple look at what's possible. And you can probably imagine that you don't have to turn off all those bits in a linear way. So we could mix and match, skipping certain bits, and then you'd get a digital distortion sound that's unlike any real-world device. There's nothing out there that does that naturally. We can even invert bits, and that basically flips their state dynamically, and you could describe it as giving a much harsher and maybe some would say destroyed sound character. So moving on beyond that, in the center of Beat Crush, the largest rotary is this crush control. It actually controls the sample rate of the audio, with which smoothly degrades from your full host sample rate, regardless of whether you're at 96 or 44 kilohertz or whatever, all the way down to basically nothing and pure digital noise. So with the crush rotary in concert with this matrix of bit controls, Beat Crush is the ultimate bit crusher. Well, that's what I think. You can be the judge, I suppose. So beyond that, we designed Beat Crush to be more than that. To complement the bit crusher, we also have 2 advanced multi-mode filters. And what's most exciting about that addition is that the filters can be arranged in the signal path in 5 different ways. By default, the audio runs through the first filter, and then through the bit crusher, and then onto the second filter. But that's completely configurable. There are parallel modes that allow the use of the pan controls. So you can pan each filter independently, and that could turn mono audio into a stereo filtered output. You can do a lot of different things with that. With these 5 different modes, it's very, very flexible. I put a lot of time and thought into making this filter section one of the most flexible ever designed in Reason. You could wire up signal paths like this in Thor, and as you know in our refills, I've done a lot of stuff like that, using its mod matrix, but it's a huge amount more work than just selecting a different path with the push of a button. So with all that flexibility, I often find myself using Beat Crush sometimes purely as a filtering device. So now I want to talk about modulations quickly. We have 2 onboard modulators, an envelope and an LFO. These can be freely routed to filter frequencies as well as the sample rate crush control. The envelope can be triggered by pushing the gate button, but it can also be triggered by a MIDI key. Actually, I have more to say about MIDI in a moment, but right now, let's flip Beat Crush around and check out the back panel. We've tried to allow for nearly everything to be modulatable by CV. Even each individual bit can be turned on and off and inverted via CV. You can imagine that once you combine that with a combinator with other modulation devices, that can get really, really crazy. Imagine a few matrix devices maybe. I'm not going to get into that right now, but there are so many possibilities you can explore using the modulations with CV. So now back to the MIDI input subject. In addition to triggering the onboard envelope via MIDI, you can also control each bit's state from a different MIDI key. So you can turn them on and off and invert them with your keyboard. We wanted to add that so there's a possible live performance element to using this effect. So yeah, with the envelope controls and the bit controls at once, you can do some pretty cool stuff live. So I know that what you'd probably like is to hear Beat Crush in action, and I really wanted that too. Jonathan already alluded to this, but basically this stream just isn't an acceptable quality to really demo it. That's kind of my judgment call. So for that reason, instead of demoing the sounds here, I'm going to send you to SoundCloud to check out the first 2 demos. I've just uploaded them. They're brand new. And I'm going to paste the link into the chat box right now. So maybe somebody can come over and say whether they see it or not. It's going to go in there right now. We're going to see it. Okay, great. We're going to have more demos ready using different source audio later. But for now, you can hear Beat Crush being used on both drums and guitar. First, you'll hear the dry sound and then affected in a variety of different ways. And so that takes us to the availability of Beat Crush. Beat Crush has been submitted to Propellerhead for acceptance. It's really hard to predict exactly when it will be approved, but it's very likely that Beat Crush will be available for purchase in the Propeller Head shop before Christmas. One more note is that BeatCrush uses Rack Extension SDK 1, which means that it's fully compatible with all versions of Reason that can host rack extensions. And now that's pretty much all I had prepared for the presentation, and I'm happy to stay a while and answer some questions about BeatCrush.
This is mighty cool looking, Jeremy. I gotta definitely tip my hat to you. You know, as somebody who is in the very early stages of building my own first rack extension, this is gorgeous. This is seriously a very, very awesome looking device. I'm just still kind of letting it all soak in as to some of the possibilities. The playability of the individual bit settings is kind of warping my mind a little. That's wild. I can only imagine what that's going to sound like.
Yeah, it's something that, since it's so uncommon, it is a little bit hard to describe, and that's why it's so disappointing that I couldn't let you hear it right this second. But if you're on that SoundCloud link, you'll be able to hear it right now. The subtleties between turning different bits on and off, it's something you really need to experience and play around with in the trial. And that's one of the that's what I really love about rack extensions, is that everybody's going to have 30 days to put this through its paces and experience all the subtleties. And even though it's subtle, it's very, very easy to use. This is a simple rack extension. Just looking at it, there's really not that many controls, but there's a lot of possibilities. So
it seems like something that's going to immediately reveal what it does. You're just going to grab a knob and twist, and you'll get something cool. It doesn't seem like something where you're going to have to really do a lot of intricate setup to get any kind of interesting result.
No, I agree with that. And that brings me to another point. Just on the patches, as you'd expect, you know, we're patch designers and refill creators, so we wanted to create a really special factory library for BeatCrush. So people like myself and Adam Fielding and Navi Retlav and Nicholas Delmont, we've put together 60 combinators, and I believe there's about 80 device patches that I'm really proud of, that take advantage of everything that BeatCrush can do. So you can use those as starting points or inspiration or whatever. One more thing just on that topic is that some of the patches are also instruments. So we've taken, imagine taking a orchestra string patch and then running it through multiple beat crushes, maybe throw a matrix in there or whatever. So not every patch is just an effect patch. There's a nice mix between instruments and effects. And our plan is to possibly add more patches with future updates. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the factory library for BeatCrush.
Very, very cool. Man, is everything we see here on the front panel automatable?
Remote automatable?
Sorry, just like sequencer lane automatable.
It should be, yes. Everything here is automatable in a combinator, which I believe one way or another you're going to be able to automate everything. You can automate just about everything via CV even. So yeah, true. Modulation is something that nobody should have a problem with this device, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, crazy flexibility. Can you flip the rack around?
Yes, we'll head back to that.
Back.
Sure.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot of interesting flexibility there. That is really cool. Wow. All right, let me see. Let's take a look at some of the questions here. I'm getting carried away, just drooling over the device.
Yeah, I see a big long list here. We better get at it.
Yeah. So this is clearly not an IDT instrument, because it's not an instrument. This is an effect device. So obviously this was a ground up device, right? You guys did this from scratch.
Yes, this is from scratch, and it has nothing to do with IDT. IDT is something we may look at for the future for sample-based instruments, but this has been in development for over a year, and IDT was just a flicker in the propeller head's eyes at that point. So yeah, this is an effect device, nothing to do with the IDT.
Yep, that's kind of what I figured. See, oh yeah, so you can run any audio through it, right? I mean, it's an audio device, even though it's MIDI controllable. It is an audio processing device.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's MIDI controllable. Yeah, I basically mentioned everything that can be controlled by MIDI. You can trigger the envelope. You can turn bits on, off, invert them.
Right.
And yeah, I believe that's everything.
Inverting bits. I want to ask about that because that's again, it's kind of melting my brain a little bit. Like, what is an inverted bit? I'm trying to wrap my head around how that makes sense.
Yeah, technically that's a difficult one to explain.
I bet.
But basically, if you can imagine that an 8-bit stream of audio is 8 separate, there's each bit is either 0 or 1, right?
Right. So you got 8 ones.
So you have
right?
8 lined up in a row. If you invert a bit, it's going to turn it to 0. And you'd think that would be the same as turning it off, but keep in mind each bit is changing at the sample rate of your audio. So it's changing all the time. So if you invert it, it just means it's the opposite of what it would normally be. It's not the same as turning it off.
Right. It's not off on, it's true false, or
it's flipping it.
Yeah.
So it'll dynamically flip in relation to the sample rate. And yeah, it's definitely, it was hard to wrap my mind around it, but it's very easy to understand once you just play with the device and hear it. It's exactly what I said. It's a much harsher, higher noise floor, and you can invert any bit though. So I mean, if you invert bit 12, boom, watch your speakers. And
really?
maybe put a limiter on it. We'll talk about all this in the manual, but you can invert one of the bits down here for a more subtle sound. So yeah, there's a huge variety. Just think of all the possible combinations of bits on, off, and invert on, off. There's a lot there.
Yeah, for sure. So the main crush knob, is that kind of the equivalent of like a dry wet knob, or
No.
does it have a different?
Yeah, dry wet is the mix control right here.
Right.
So yeah, you can mix in whatever dry wet you want. Crush is sample rate decimation, and
okay.
that's so if you have 44 kilohertz audio, it's dynamically removing samples from that. So you're at 44, and I mean, we have a percentage here. You can't see the exact sample rate you're at, but imagine at 50%, say you're at 22 kilohertz. I don't think it's dynamically slicing out all of those samples. And it's something, Scream 4 can do something similar to that. If you've ever played around with Scream 4 with its bit crush mode.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember what it's called right now. Digital, I think. But it's a sound that most people will be familiar with. This isn't the strangest or hardest to understand control. It's very easy once you get a hold of it. But it's a great effect, especially in concert with all the other controls.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, wow. Let's go back to the questions here. So, so you've got, I see there's some filter types there. Were those modeled after any particular analog, classic filters or anything like that, or
good question. Yeah, no, those are our own algorithms. We didn't model them after any particular. There's so many directions you could take that in if you're going after filter emulations, and there's also a lot of devices that get that quite right already. Like there's some great emulations in Thor. So we wanted to take this in a more original direction. And on that note, there is something that's quite original that's in very few synthesizers or effects that I want to mention, and that's the N2 filter mode. And that is two notches in series. So it's a double notch filter. So since there's two filters, you could actually put them in series and you'd get 4 notches in a row. And you can get you could either use it for like phaser-esque stuff, or it's good for vowel sounds almost. Like you can get some formant filter-ish stuff out of it. And there's some additional flexibility with that N2 mode, because the space in between those two filters, the 2 notches, that's configurable on the back panel. It's called, you should be able to see it now.
Oh
We've
yeah.
got these two controls, the NN ratio for both filters. So it's a very unique mode that the only thing that I'm aware of that uses it is Massive, Native Instruments Massive, and it's one of my favorites. You can get such cool sounds out of it, so I had to put it in there. Of course, you can switch between 12 dB and 24 dB for every filter type. But yeah, the filters, they're original, but I feel they're excellent.
Wow, very cool. So somebody's got the question of, I'm not quite sure why it needs to go into a combinator for this, but he's asking if it can be put into a combinator, saved as a patch, and then used as a master insert for the overall mix. I would assume this could just be thrown in as a master insert already.
Oh,
right?
you could definitely put it in your mixer as like in your mastering combinator. You could, if you want to crush your entire mix, there's absolutely more power to you. You can do it.
Yep.
That's not a problem. And you could even you could use the dry wet control. Maybe you just want a little bit of that, or you could
maybe just want a little edge on it or something.
Yeah, you could use you could also use the bus tracks and like bus multiple sounds into a single bit crusher. But honestly, it's not a very high CPU device, so you can use it kind of wherever you want on certain elements without having to obsess over whether should this be a send effect or a bus effect or anything like that. So you can just throw it on, enjoy.
Good. So yeah, that's a really valid question, because the CPU issue, as we've got more and more rack extensions these days, we're all starting to run up into the CPU limits as we go crazy with devices, and something that we could only have a couple instances of before maxing out CPU would really be a drag. So it's good to hear that this is CPU light and we can use a bunch of them if we want to.
Yeah, it should be fine. I mean, I can't vouch for everyone's system, but none of the testers mentioned anything about problems with CPU, and I didn't experience any either. So it should be totally fine to have, I don't know, 5 to 10 of these in your song without a problem.
Very cool. So on the main crush knob, you've got on, main, and sign, and crush, of course, I guess, or actually crush is just the label of the knob, I guess.
Yes.
So what is sign?
So yeah, sign is something I didn't originally mention. You could think of it like the 13th bit. This is a really difficult one to explain, but basically it affects every other bit. You say I set up, I'm going to just change some of the bits there. Say I had this set up and I pushed sign. It affects everything. It completely changes the character of the sound. It even changes the character of the sound if everything is set up as stock. How it changes it, it's a little bit hard to describe, but it's basically another really easy tool that you can use to just mangle your beats or your source audio. It's not super harsh, so you can sometimes use it for more subtle sounds. And it's really great, I find, when you're browsing through the patch catalog that we've created. You can just flip the sign on a patch and boom, it's almost a completely new patch. And that also goes for, just on that topic, it's a little bit like if anybody's familiar with Yamaha DX7 or now PX7 propeller head rack extension, you can switch the FM algorithms in those synths. And a lot of people, they're so hard to program that it's like lots of people would just flip through the algorithms on different patches and they'd come up with something new and original. Well, I found the exact same thing with this signal path here. You just queue up some patches and move through some signal paths, and it just is completely different. Even if you don't want to touch anything else, you can just load up a patch and tweak away with signal path and sign, and they make a huge difference to the sound that I wish you could hear, but you can't right now.
Is signal path automatable?
Signal path is automatable, I believe. Let me just.
Or maybe through a combi, yeah.
Yeah, it just muted my voice there when I pulled up that combinator. Hold on one second here.
Oh, because it probably changed.
Yeah, it changed. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Well, now you guys can see everything that is automatable.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, wow. I believe it's in. There it is.
Signal path. Ooh, there it is.
Signal
Yep.
path. So you could put it on our rotary here and
Oh, wow.
see it moving. Yeah, everything.
That's cool.
It's definitely one of my annoyances with any Reason device where I'm limited what I can automate, whether that's in a combinator or not. So I wanted everything, and I believe everything is automatable.
Very, very cool. So on the envelope, there's a gate button.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
So that's triggering.
That's just a trigger,
Yeah,
strictly?
it triggers it. So imagine this is also difficult to demonstrate without audio, but if I set up something like this for the envelope, and then maybe I set it to affect the filter one frequency, and I clicked gate, then you'd get like a quick filter sweep. It would take 0.4 seconds to happen.
So it's going to happen over time. It's not as long as you hold the button down.
No, yeah, and the same thing with pushing a MIDI key. So I'd push a MIDI key, and that it runs through that envelope. It would if you bring now this is getting into like a synth class. This reminds me of what we talked about in
yes, it
our
does.
class, Jonathan. But anyways, if we raised up sustain, then of course we could hold that MIDI key down.
Right,
and
it's an ADSR envelope for the beat crush.
Yes,
right.
So it's
okay.
Yeah, it's triggerable by MIDI, or this button is really just for testing it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine you would really want to be sitting there clicking the button in your music, but for testing purposes, yeah, it could be handy.
Yeah, testing.
Huh. Okay, very cool. So back to inverting the bits, there was a question about is inverting the bits, is that the same as inverting the signals? I mean, would you get like a comb filtering effect, or is it just something completely different?
Yeah, it's something completely different. Yeah, if you ran some audio against its own inverted audio, you're right, you'd get like phasing or silence, but no, it's nothing like that. This is all of these bit controls, they're not really it's hard to think of them actually as effects. Like they're affecting the source audio like at the bit level. Like you could think about that. That's like in comparison to like the that in the physical world, the level of the atom or something. Like it's affecting the audio at the smallest possible level. So
right.
it's not doing anything as simple as just like inverting the signal or anything. It's breaking down each bit of the audio
level.
And then you can do different things on those individual bits.
Right.
You could even you could get really creative with it and run multiple Beat Crush devices and have all of them being sent to a different mixer channel, and then you could set different effects on each bit. So you could put like a chorus on bit 8 or something and a delay on bit 9. And
that's insane.
This is a bit of a preview towards what some of the people did for the factory patches, but yeah, it's a lot of detail.
Do the bits not get out of sync?
No,
by doing that?
They never ever. Well, I mean, if you delay it, put delay on it. But
I mean, like the latency of a device
doesn't
cause issues?
There's no latency that I'm aware. There's no latency to this device at all.
Wow. Huh. That is. I'm just trying to. Again, my head is kind of exploding about the idea of running effects on one individual bit of the audio. Like that. Just wow. I can't even imagine what exactly that would be. I'm just gonna have to play with it. That's crazy. Man. Okay. So you, there's some question about the inbuilt. I guess on the back there's an inverse. You have some inverse connections or something, or
let's see here.
I think he was talking about the back. Maybe not. I'm not quite sure. He said something about that you had mentioned an inbuilt inverse, and is that the same as just using the inverse on a spider?
Inverting the bit again, if that's what it's referring to.
Oh, maybe that was, maybe that's what we're talking about. No. In which case, no, it would be completely different.
Yeah,
it's not even
spiders, inverting stuff on spiders, that's CV signals. Yeah, and this is, totally we're doing unrelated. All of this in the audio domain, but it can be controlled through CV. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through some of these questions too as well. I see one, how much is Beat Crush going to cost after the 30-day trial? And that is something that's that's something that's undecided just yet. So you're going to have to wait till it's in the store for that. I can't answer that right now. Let's see what else I can. I see a lot
just
of.
for fun, Jeremy,
Sure.
can you throw this as an insert onto your mic channel? Just to see what it would sound like, even though it's going to sound like crap over this system. I'm just dying to hear it.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay, so it's a creative.
Okay, testing.
Okay.
Testing. Yeah, I don't want to blow up any. I don't want to blow up anyone's speakers.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Honestly, I'm going to say that this device is for vocals. You're going to need to be pretty creative, probably, to make some use of it. Not to say that you can't, but really wasn't designed with affecting vocals in mind.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's just incredible on drums, drum loops, but not specifically that. Only synths. Especially bass. I love running synth bass or even electric bass through it. So yeah, lots and lots of applications, but vocals are probably more on the side that it wasn't really designed for. Hopefully I didn't hurt anybody's speakers there. That was
no, I don't think so at
improvisation.
all. Yeah, I don't think you could pass audio that would actually cause any problems over this system anyway. I'm sure it would clamp down before it ever got out.
Will the fan at the back ever animate? I see. Well, that's a question for Propeller Head. If yeah, that'd be really cool if it would, but it's not up to us. But doesn't that fan look great?
No, I love the look of that. So there's one more question. Does the sine option, does that affect the transients of the audio? I imagine it would affect everything.
Yeah, it affects everything, but I wouldn't say that it smears anything. Like nothing about this device is going to make your transients weaker in any way, but it's going to affect the whole sound. So yeah, again, that sine is really hard to describe with words, I'm afraid. Why we could, let's see here. Maybe even though it's not going to sound great, maybe I can give it a try. Let's see with this drum loop here. Okay, so you should hear those drums. And now I'm going to just switch the sine. Oh, wait a sec. What do we have here? There we go.
Ah, yes. Needs to be on wet.
Yep. Oh. Oh.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, it did. I don't think it was a problem.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. We had both filters on. Sorry, I wasn't set up for this. Okay.
Sure.
All right. So here's the drum loop, and here's with sine disabled.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that changed the entire character of the sound.
Like the snare, I don't know if it's coming through, but the snare sounds like it went up like an octave.
Yeah, it's pitched. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it
it's
sounds
pitched
really cool.
up. Yeah. So okay, that's a taste. Just because we got so many questions about the sine. Looking at some other questions here. X9 Design, will they design all your devices? I can't say for sure about that, but Tom at X9 did an amazing job on Beat Crush.
Yeah, it looks real nice.
And we do want to maintain a look to hopefully all of our devices. So
yeah, you did. He did a great job of really sticking with the rack convention. It feels like a physical device. I can totally see that sitting in my rack and reaching over and grabbing a knob.
Well, that was definitely the hope, and we also added these. You can see these LEDs around each control. I wanted that for a unique look, and I also wanted it so that you could at a glance see exactly where every control is, because sometimes I look at rack extensions and devices, and they have tiny little markings on the rotaries that it's just not easily apparent what controls you're working with and what values they're at. So we went all in and spent a bunch of extra time designing these fancy LEDs that surround each rotary.
I love that, by the way. It's just, I've not seen that at a Reason device before, and I just completely dig it because it's just so instant. I'm realizing as I'm looking at the device, my eyes are not searching for the little detent or the line or the dot or anything like that. They just go straight to those green lines, and I instantly I know what it's set to. I hadn't really thought about it. It was just an automatic thing. That's where my eyes went, and I love that.
Well, that was the idea.
It works.
Yeah, great. So we're looking at 36 minutes here, guys. Sorry, I was planning on this to be about 15, 20 minutes. I'll take a few more questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm going to Jonathan, you can have a look through, and I'll also have a look through and see if there's anything else that we should handle here.
Now, I assume, I mean, at this point, this is your public unveiling of this. I mean, people can talk about this now, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, the SoundCloud demos are out. I saw somebody in the questions asked about a video demo, and I am planning on doing a video demo of the entire device, some of the patches that are included, just like all our products have. It'll have a professional video demo. This is just something different that I wanted to show people that were really interested in it, a first look at it. So it'll definitely have an intro video. And let's see, is there a reason why your bits go from left to right, 1 to 12?
From right to left, actually.
Yeah. They start at the right. I think it's the main reason for that is because bit 12 is okay. Gets into a little bit of theory, but
it's the most drastic, right?
Yeah, it's called the MSB, the most significant bit, and this is a bit 1 is the LSB, the least significant bit. So all these bits over here have the least amount of effect on the sound. They're the most subtle. So I guess we thought that it'd make more sense to start from the left with the most powerful effects. It's hard to say whether that was the right decision or not, but that's what we went with. So
seems reasonable.
Yeah. I see a question about the LFO. Is it free? Yeah, you can sync it to tempo. You can see some of there's basically, it goes, one of my pet peeves with LFOs is they don't go slow enough. So this one, you can see it syncs over a really, really long period.
Yeah. I really like a slow LFO for those long modulations.
Yeah,
so that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you can turn sync off and go really low, unsynced as well, or really fast. So
that's 100 hertz, is it, the frequency?
Yes, that's 100 hertz.
Okay, so it doesn't go up to audio rates or anything.
No, it doesn't go up to audio rates. That's something we were considering, and just seemed like it might be beyond the scope of this particular device, but it does go pretty damn fast. Let's see. Mark is asking, are you okay with an article straight after this? No, just go for it. This is all public, so do whatever you like with knowledge. An article would be great. What's the difference between this and a pulverizer? There's a lot of difference. That's kind of hard to put really into a small bite-sized chunk there. I mean, it has no compressor like a pulverizer does. It has 2 filters. Pulverizer doesn't have a bit crusher. So I'll just say that for now, and you can find out all the differences when you get to trial it. Let's see.
This is definitely a trial device. I can see how this isn't something I'm going to really have I'm going to really have an understanding of what I would do with it until I'm playing around with it. It's just what it's going to take.
Yeah, it's definitely going to help to have a trial, and I'm really happy that everybody will be able to trial it. Let's see. Why did I call it Beat Crush instead of Bit Crush? Well, I don't know. Would Bit Crush really have been a good enough name? I don't know. I like Beat Crush. Let's see.
Well, and given all the different ways to trigger it and so forth, it really seems like it super lends itself to rhythmic triggerings. So I can totally see using this in a rhythmic fashion on something with a beat to it. So to me, that actually makes sense. It's not. I had my own idea in my head about why you might have called it Beat Crush, and I was kind of expecting certain things, and now that you've demoed it, I see, okay, I had the wrong idea of why it was named that, but
Yeah.
it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. Let's just put it that
Yep.
way. I see another question here. Did we answer this one from D-Day about a selection of patches or?
Yes, we did. I went ahead and answered it again, but yeah, there's a whole sound
Okay.
bank that you said.
Yeah, there's a big sound bank that nobody's going to be disappointed with. It's if you like our refills, it's going to be filter research quality. Let's put it that way.
Awesome.
And let's see here. Yeah, price. People are still asking price. Maybe they joined late. Price. I'm not talking about today. That's one of the few things you're going to have to wait for it to be in the store. Let's put it this way. It's going to be somewhere in the middle range. It's not going to be at the high end of rack extensions, and it's not going to be at the low end because frankly, it costs a lot to develop a rack extension, especially to create a custom user interface like this. So maybe that'll set your expectations. Yeah, somewhere in the middle range of rack extension prices is what it's going to cost. Does the filter on button turn the filter on? Yes. Well, of course you don't always want the filters on, so you can turn those on and off independently. And on that same point, this has been a bit of a long one, but I don't believe I've mentioned that you can turn the bit crusher off completely.
I was just about to ask that. Yeah.
Okay. And that means that you won't get that 12-bit audio. Like I said, everything that's run through it is 12-bit. Well, hey, sometimes you don't want that. So just turn the bit crusher off. Then all of this is inactive, and you can use it like a really cool dual filter bank.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
it's multiple devices in one, really. It's multiple filters and a bit crush. You can use them separately or together, and it's ridiculously automatable. The signal path is wild. I don't think there's any device that really gives you signal path flexibility, is there?
Well, some of them they may have buttons that switch from serial to parallel and that kind of thing. But one thing that was really important for me was to visualize it, because often people, especially if you're not a synth geek, so, okay, a parallel filter signal path, WTF does that mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like just visualizing these, it's really simple to know exactly what you want. Okay, you're going to have a bit crusher, and then you're going to have two filters after it. It's pretty straightforward when you see it like that. Very easy to switch between them and figure out exactly what you want.
Yeah. Wow, very, very cool. I can't wait to play around with this. You guys have all had the benefit of being able to go listen to the SoundCloud links while we're doing this if you want, but I don't have that luxury because I got to pay attention. But I'm dying to jump off this and go listen to those links and hear what it really sounds like. More questions.
A few more questions here I'll answer. So filter 1 and 2 and their panning, people are asking about, how does it work? Well, in serial modes, you can't pan the filters. Like they're running one into the other. It just doesn't make sense to pan one and then the next one. Like you can't really do that with digital audio. It doesn't make sense. But with two, if you're sending the signal to two different filters in a parallel way, they're each getting their own feed that's not being run into each other, then you can pan them however you want. So if I set up these two filters like this, hard panned, and maybe I use like a really similar filter frequency. What do I have here? Almost 3K. So I set this one at like 2.5K. And then maybe I put a sweep on it, put a sweep on both of them. Then you'll get like this beautiful stereo filter sweep. And that is, like I said, that's quite, you can do that with Thor. You can do that with other devices, but it requires quite a bit of setup. Whereas this is just like, boom, set the signal path, set the pans, and you're off to the races. So yeah, the pans only function in parallel mode, but it's exactly what you want. If you're wondering about it, it works exactly the way that you'd want it to.
Very cool.
let's see, anything else? What do you
Question
think?
about a split band.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Well, we're not planning on adding any major features right now. As you can see, the interface is pretty full. But a split band mode, that's something you can easily do in a combinator using
Yeah, you could use the stereo
the
splitter, right?
yeah, the
Yeah, or stereo
stereo
imager.
the
I mean, yeah.
stereo imager, and there's quite a few patches like that in the sound bank. And making a rack extension is a very delicate process where you don't want to duplicate too much functionality that's already in Reason, especially with stock Reason devices that everybody has. So I mean, we could put a split band mode in there, but it makes it a much more complex device. Whereas you can just kind of wire that all up in a combinator and get it done that way. So it's a very delicate balance to try to get enough complexity in there that you could use it all by itself and do some really cool stuff, but not so much that it's like this overwhelming Uber rack extension.
Right.
So
yeah. But yeah, I mean that's the beauty of Reason is that, take any device and by the time you throw it in with a combinator and interact it with everything else, I mean any device can become way more than what it initially was out of the box. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't say what updates hold. Definitely, once it comes out, you can give us feedback on it. But yeah, it's pretty good as is. I think it's got a lot of functionality. I see someone say Reason 8 compatible. Is it Reason 8 compatible? It's compatible with every version of Reason that runs rack extensions, and to my knowledge, that's Reason 6.5, Reason 7, and all variants of Reason 7 and Reason 8. So if you can run rack extensions with your copy of Reason, you are good to go.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the rack extension format is you don't need to worry about that kind of thing.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
Very, very cool. I think this has gone, long enough. Don't want to take too much more of everybody's time, but this looks really awesome. I can't wait to go listen to the SoundCloud as soon as we're done here. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for agreeing to do this. I was thrilled when you took my suggestion and decided to go ahead and do it. Thank you, everybody, for being on this. We had a great turnout, some great questions. I think we're all really excited to see this enter the shop, hopefully any day now. I know I'm going to be watching for it. I guess that's about it. If anybody, of course, thinks of any questions after the fact, obviously you can post them in the forum. Jeremy will see them. Yeah, we'll take it from there. I can't wait to see what other material you put out about this, demos and the like, over the next coming days.
Well, thank you so much again, Jonathan, and thank you everyone for coming. I apologize for the length of this. It wasn't really my goal, and I apologize for not getting an audio demo, like a real significant one in here, but yeah, I'm a little bit picky about showing off my pride and joy with AM quality. It was just too much of a sacrifice to make, but hopefully you like the SoundCloud stuff. There's a bunch more SoundCloud stuff coming, video demo coming, and the trial coming. It's all coming really soon. So yeah, thanks again for your time, and I better go. So Take care, everyone.
Have a great night, all.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.